the day that I decided to have that surgery was the first time that I realized there's a difference between knowing yourself and understanding yourself. Like I've always known that I'm a all or nothing kind of person, but I never understood why until I had to make the decision not to be.
Welcome to Liberated Lyfe podcast. I'm Lindsay, and today I'm here with one of Kansas City's finest, Nathan Goldstein, lovingly referred to by everyone we know as Goldie. Welcome, Goldie.
Good morning. Great morning.
Great morning. So today we're going to talk about your liberation story, which probably started when you were born, but has recently kind of like picked up steam in the last few years. You've made like an amazing physical transformation. You've shifted your career. So I want to dig into all that stuff. So start us off, if you don't mind, with kind of like where you came from, where you were at just a few years ago, and what your life looked like.
For sure. Where it came from. From like where I'm raised.
Sure, you could throw that in there. But yeah. So back in like, 2016, you were working at a desk job like 70 hours a week. You were also working at a local bar like 30 hours a week. Just kind of like take me back to that time in your life and like.
Okay. So yeah, I worked, I bartended for years and did sales and promotions, and I was always kind of the party guy that if I wasn't working at the bar, throwing the party, I was trying to find a way to throw a party and get people together and do all the things. Back in 2016, I took on an office and desk job where I went from, instead of being on my feet, running around all the time, to sitting on my ass all the time. And I'm one of those people that if I'm working for someone, I'm working hard. So I put my nose to the grindstone, and for the first year and a half, 2 years there, I worked 60, 70 hours a week, 6 days a week. I'd be there until 9 o'clock at night sometimes, selling insurance.
Grinding.
Yeah. And for the first year and a half or so of that, I was still working 25, 30 hours a week at the bar. So I was living on gas station food in between, bar food while I was working at the bar food next door to lunch, because I didn't have time to meal prep, nor the desire or energy to meal prep. And before I knew it, in the first 6 months of working at that desk job, I gained 75 pounds. Within a year and a half, I blew up from like 320 to 460 and some change. 460 was the heaviest I ever saw before I decided I wasn't going to look at the scale again until I felt like I was below that number. However, I decided that for the rest of that year to continue to treat myself like a trash can. So I don't really know what the true highest number is. I know it's higher than 460, but at the end of the day, those numbers don't matter anymore. Matter of fact, today's numbers really don't even matter. They're the least important part of my journey.
Yeah. So tell me, like, was there a rock bottom point where you hit and you were like, holy shit, like something has to change here?
I hit that point a lot. Over the years, I realized like, all right, I got to get this back in check. And I would start working out and I would hit the ground hard, right? And dive in and get a really good routine built and get, 30 days, 60 days in, and I'd have some sort of a setback. I'd hurt my ankle or I'd twist a knee, whatever it was, I'd end up having to take some time off. And everything that I had lost, I'd gain back and then some. And I yo-yoed like that for years. Mostly hovered around that 420 to 375 range. But I mean, that yo-yo was from late 2017 until I finally, at the end of December 29th, 2022, around 3 p.m, specifically, decided that was the day.
That was the day. Yeah. I feel like, okay, backing up for a second, I'm like, how fucking discouraging would it be to go hard, lose weight, and then hurt yourself and gain it back. Like, and you did that multiple times. So I
Oh,
can only imagine like what led up to this December 29th moment. It seems like you went back and forth, what, like 5, 6 times before you.
at least. I mean, in April of 2019, I dislocated my hip with a 90% dislocation from running too much because I decided, all right, it's time to go. And in 8 days, I did something like 55 miles on the elliptical because like I said, I'm an all or nothing kind of person. I was like, all right, let's go. And for years, I tried to lose weight. It wasn't until I started realizing the number on the scale is not even important. So I want to fucking live.
That's what it came down to. It was like life or death moment.
Pretty much.
What happened?
I mean, nothing specifically. I just realized I wasn't living a life that I wanted to live.
Mm.
And if I didn't make a change, something drastic, I didn't know how many more tomorrows I had. And that scared the fuck out of me.
What do you think you were like back in that time? You weren't living your life for yourself. You were living it for something, some other people, or what was it?
Oh, 100%. I was so numb and discontent internally. The only thing that brought me any joy was making other people smile. So that's what I did. Back in, I think it was 2018 or 19, I had swallowed my pride and gone to my doctor and said, hey, I want to look at weight loss surgery because I was ready back then. And he was ready to sign off, contacted my health insurance, and I'm paraphrasing because obviously they weren't going to say this directly, but they basically told me they'd rather I just fucking died. They refused to pay for the surgery because it was considered an elective surgery. Even when I asked them, I said, hey, I was like, what if my doctor writes me a note that says, I will die without this surgery? They're like, yeah, that's not going to change our mind.
Another fucking roadblock for you.
Oh, it was devastating. I spiraled pretty hard for a while after that. It wasn't until would have been early 2022 when I saw that a buddy of mine had posted he was going to Tijuana to do weight loss surgery. And I was like, whoa, Tijuana. I've heard a few things about Tijuana, and healthcare is not one of them. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, man, I was like, tell me a little bit about what you got going on. And, he told me about this, Pompeii medical facility down there, notorious for doing weight loss surgeries. Sent me a link to follow their Facebook page, which has like 70,000 people in it. So for about a year, I followed his journey, dozens of other people's success stories and horror stories of what went wrong and why the surgery didn't work for them until the end of 2022. Like I said, Thursday, December 29th, 3 p.m, just absolutely miserable, sitting in my desk chair. Couldn't bring myself to work. Couldn't bring myself to think about anything except for how to get my life back. Because I knew everything was fucked. Physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. So I sent in my application. I was like, fuck it. What's the worst that can happen? I need to swallow my pride on the all or nothing. Because it was one of those things, like, it felt like if I couldn't do all of it at once, I couldn't do any of it.
What would all of it have looked like?
I don't know. Like, I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
I knew I was broken. It wasn't until this summer that I truly realized just how broken I was broken in so many ways. I didn't even know how to start or what to fix first until I made that decision that I had the money to pay for the surgery. And if I could get a crutch or a tool to help with just one category, which category was going to be the most important to spark the rest. And I knew that if I could get my health, my physical health back in check, that from there, I could start working on my mental health, my emotional health, and the rest of it would spiral from there. So like I said, I'm an all or nothing person. And I knew if I could just get that fucking ball rolling, there was no stopping it. So took the
Yeah.
leap, sent in the application at 3, and at 7 o'clock at night, as I was coming home from the office, 7 o'clock p.m., December 29th, still putting in the grind because that's all I never knew how to do. I got the phone call telling me I was approved for the surgery. And they're like, well, hey, we can get, when would you like to get in? I was like, probably, sooner the better, right? Like, so I can't back out.
You can back out. Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, oh, we can get you in the next 2 weeks. And I was like, ooh, not that soon. Not that soon. I need time to like prepare, the Chiefs.
Travel to Tijuana.
Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl run and I didn't want to miss that, right? Like, it was always one of those things like I don't want to miss the big cool things.
Right.
So I scheduled it for February 23rd, 18 months ago today, actually. And I weighed 420 at the night that I made that decision. I weighed 390 the day I went under the knife.
Even making that decision just like puts you on that path.
Yeah. Yeah. Like just jump starting it. And that first 30 pounds was probably the hardest 30 pounds because on January 7th, I got another 90% dislocation in my right hip.
Oh,
I'd gone in for a 2-hour massage and incredible massage, one of the best massages I'd had in years since my regular gal had retired. And at the end of it, she grabbed my ankles and she played my legs like the battle ropes. And I was like,
yeah.
what the fuck are you doing? Like, it didn't hurt. It just was weird. I went to Sam's Club, and as I dipped down to grab my receipt, because the receipt thing's low, I felt it pop out of place. And I was like, oh my God. But I didn't realize what it was initially. And I clutched onto the cart, finished my second order because I had 2 orders I needed to do, where I turned sideways with my arms because I couldn't move my legs. And one of the cashiers at Sam's Club came over. She's like, excuse me, sir, are you okay? I was like, uh-huh. Yeah, I'll be all right. As I hobbled, gripping onto that cart to get back out to the car. And missed my first and only the only time I had ever tried to go to Missy B's for brunch, or not Missy B's, I'm sorry, Hamburger Mary's for their drag brunch. I had a bunch of friends scheduled to go for my birthday. So I didn't tell anybody that Sunday morning until I was supposed to be there. I texted everybody, said, hey, I'm not going to be there. I hope you guys still have a great time. And they all sent me a bunch of snaps and videos. So that was cool. But yeah, that was the first of many setbacks over the last 18, 19 months of the final leg of this journey.
Right. Okay. And I feel like there's a theme there of like not wanting to ask for help.
Oh, I've never.
Like, what's that?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever learned how to truly ask for help.
It's not one of my favorite things to do either, and I'm not good at it either. That's why I can recognize it.
Yeah.
But,
I've always prided myself on being the guy that people come to for help.
right. Right. But your hip literally popped out of its socket, and it was like, bro, you got to take care of you now. Even on your own birthday, like you have to tell everybody to fuck off.
Yep. Yeah, it was painful. So that was, like I said, that was the second time in under 5 years, and the last. That is not going to happen ever again. The strength and flexibility of my hips has been a major focus of this journey.
And when that happened, luckily you had the light at the end of the tunnel of that surgery was scheduled. Like you were going to go.
Yeah.
So tell us about the surgery itself. Like, how was it scary to go to Tijuana for the surgery?
Yes and no. A lot. I didn't tell many people. I went to a friend of mine's wedding for New Year's Eve, where a handful of my closest friends were going to be. So I told all of them. But outside of my immediate family, I bet I didn't tell 7, 8 people maybe. Mostly because I didn't want people, oh, you're going to Tijuana. Oh my God, the
Right.
healthcare in
Talk you out of
Mexico.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they weren't going to talk me out of it, but I just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Like that was the first conscious decision that I made about negative comments and not subjecting myself to them. Because even some of those close friends were like, they bring, oh, aren't you worried? Like, I'm like, no, you need to shut the fuck up. Like, as a matter of fact, I told one of them, shut the fuck up. And if they wanted to continue talking, they could get the hell out. And he just kind of looked at me. I was like, bro, like, don't. Like, I've made my decision and I'm excited for it.
And I didn't ask you what your opinion was. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't tell anybody. My brother Marshall went with me as my companion, because you get someone with you down there. They fly into San Diego and drive you from San Diego down to Tijuana. And I spent 5 days down there, what they call their beach house.
Ooh, was it really a beach house?
It was more like an old apartment that they'd kind of bought and remodeled for short-term stays for this. And this isn't the only facility that does these kind of surgeries in Mexico, specifically in Tijuana. I know of at least 3, because I've had 2 other friends who've gone down and done it at different facilities. But they had to go down there because the American healthcare system's trash.
Okay, that's the other thing I wanted to say too, is like, if you couldn't get health insurance to approve a weight loss surgery when you were over 400 pounds, who the hell does qualify?
Yeah. Yeah, they consider it an elective surgery. I'm sorry, but a surgery that's going to help you lose 200 pounds is not the same as a boob job. It's just not. It's not
And
lip injections.
it would have saved them money in the long term.
I do think there's been a shift with it, because since my surgery, I personally know at least 3 people whose health insurance did pay for it here in the States, because I have had a few other people who've reached out as they started their journeys with the surgery. Yeah. 3 in the last year whose health insurance paid for it, and then 1 who had to go to Mexico to get it because hers wouldn't. So I think some of them are getting on board, and hopefully that becomes a trend, because it's revolutionary.
The other thing I think is interesting is your career shift, because you were selling insurance before this, not health insurance, but like auto insurance and home insurance. And like, did part of you feel like contradicted to that industry after that experience, where you're just like, screw this? Did that have anything to do with it?
No, that I got to a point where I was just so complacent with life. A few weeks before the surgery, I had done a mushroom trip with some friends, and we were just sitting around watching cool videos and listening to music and just kind of vibing out. And it kind of unlocked my creative side. And I didn't realize it then. I realized it this summer as I was tracking back, trying to figure out the different triggers for things. And I realized that night, I remember that night explicitly thinking to myself, dude, this chick's talented, but you can do anything with your own creativity to make money. Like, I realized that working at a desk job, selling something to people who don't want to buy what you're selling because they think it's a scam, and in some regards, they're not 100% wrong, but don't get me wrong, I believe in the power of insurance and the importance of it.
Mm-mm.
I think insurance companies are fucking trash, and they don't treat their customers for shit. They don't give a fuck about their customers, to be honest. They only give a shit about who they can sell tomorrow.
Oh, don't I know? I make a living off of those motherfuckers.
It's wild. Like, I got tired of dealing with that. I got tired of dealing with chasing people who didn't want to be caught, right? Like Like, hey, dude, I'm saving you $100 a month and I'm improving your coverage. And we had an incredible conversation about your family. Here's where you sign. And they would just ghost me. I'm like, bro, were you on the same phone call I was on? Like, I'm literally saving you $100 a month and giving you better than what you had. Where's the disconnect? And it, like, the most disheartening was when it was friends, like people that I considered friends who would just fall off the face of the earth. And I'm like, okay, I see where that level of respect is, right? At least tell me to fuck myself. Like, ghosting somebody is the trashiest form of communication I've ever come across in my whole life.
Yeah.
Grow a pair of balls, just be a person. And if you don't feel comfortable telling somebody to go to hell, I'll start the first part of the conversation.
Yeah. That probably filtered some people out, but yeah, you felt like that. So the mushroom trip showed you like,
yeah, I realized, ultimately I ended up realizing just how stifled my creativity had been. For years when I worked at the bar, I was allowed to use my creativity with making cocktails, coming up with theme ideas for fun events, lots of ways to be creative. And I thrived in a fast-paced, busy, creative environment.
yeah,
In all facets, right? Like socially, mentally. Whereas when I started sitting at a desk job and I was told what I had to do and was given scripts that I was supposed to learn and follow, which I never did, right? Like that was one of the things that my boss and I butted heads about, was I didn't follow the scripts because I could say it more eloquently than that and more genuinely.
it's more natural.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I realized just how stifled my creativity was and how much more I could enjoy life if I started allowing myself to use my creativity to make a living. So I started thinking hard on that, and I always had thought about it, but it wasn't until a little over 2 years ago I started actually taking more notes instead of trying to keep it all up here. Because I got to a point to where I had so many things in my head that I couldn't function without music. And I know I'm jumping around here.
No, not really.
Like at the office, I had to have music. At home, I had to have music. To go to sleep, I had to have some sort of music or noise, because in a silent room, it was too loud in here. So I had to have something to draw some of those thoughts away, so that the thoughts in my head weren't fighting each other for what was going to get the attention. So I could actually focus on one thing at a time.
Right.
So in 2022, I started taking notes and business ideas. And I mean, you name it, I have dozens and dozens of pages of notes. And in October of 22, I met with a friend of mine and I bought an LLC for Goldie Bear Networking and Entertainment. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I honestly forgot that I did it. A year later, when I went to launch my business, I was like, wait a minute. I think I already have this LLC. I didn't realize it had been an entire year since I bought it, almost to the day from when I was having this thought of, I need to get an LLC.
How weird.
So yeah, through 22, I was taking notes. At the beginning of 23, I started my weight loss and fitness journey with, umpteen setbacks between the hip. Right after about the time my hip was getting cleared, I had the surgery. And then I had an 8-week recovery from there, where I wasn't allowed to lift more than about 20 pounds. All I could do was walk. And that even was rough because the hip was still healing. So and I followed their pre-op and post-op diet recommendations about 95%. I cheated for the Super Bowl a hair, because that was like 2 days into the 2 weeks. So I did that, but the last 12 days I did it to a T. And it showed just how important that was, because when you go down there, that you essentially have like surgery classes where there's like 8 people all having their surgeries on the same day, maybe 10. and all staying in the same facility. And, I was up and walking around because I was dedicated. I was like, I want to heal. I want to get going. Maybe a little bit too much into the all or nothing, but I wanted to push myself as much as I could push myself. So, they recommended every hour on the hour, get up and walk for 15 minutes. I'd push myself to 20. There was one or two times they're like, hey, you've been at this for a while. You need to go lay back down. I was like, yeah, I feel okay. But go lay back down. But I remember passing the other patients in the hallway. And the second day, I remember specifically this one lady looks at me. She goes, why do you look like you feel so much better than I do? I'm like, I don't know. And then it was like the second or third patient who made a similar comment to it about it. I was like, well, I mean, maybe it was the pre-op diet and following it as strict as they said. And I'm walking like they said, and I remembered everybody chatting the night before our surgeries and everybody talking about how much they cheated and they didn't follow the pre-op stuff. And some of them were really bad about it. And it showed, like, you could tell a difference on who felt miserable and who took time. I mean, there was one girl who I didn't think she was going to be able to leave the same day we were all supposed to leave because she felt so miserable and she cheated the worst out of everybody.
So your all or nothing mindset came in handy in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, I was so ready to change my habits because I had done, like I said, I had done the damn thing over and over and over, right? Where I would start out eating healthy, right? Give me some grilled chicken and salads. And now did I put croutons and cheese and stuff on it? Yeah. So it wasn't the best thing, but it was still better than just eating a cheeseburger. I remember one time, and I don't remember what I was eating, but somebody made a comment about, it was probably a salad with stuff on it. And they were like, talking about how that wasn't healthy. That's not good. And I was like, bitch, who the fuck do you think you were to tell me what I should or shouldn't eat? It was either this or a Big Mac. I think I made the right choice. Like, get off my back. I could eat a chocolate covered Big Mac and nobody's going to say a word about it. But the minute I start trying to eat healthy, everybody's got a fucking opinion about how wrong my healthy eating is. So like that was wild to me. How many times people would be like, oh, you're not supposed to just eat grilled chicken breast and broccoli. You need to eat this or do this fad diet. And I'm like, no, I'll do whatever I want to do. Now, none of it worked. I failed umpteen times until now.
No, I was just, okay. So it kind of all culminated around this, so it was the mushroom trip. You scheduled the surgery and then you had the surgery.
Yep.
Then you changed and then you left your desk job.
Yeah.
All in a few months or so.
Yeah. All within a year. So I had the surgery in February, went through my 8 weeks. I followed that post-op diet very strictly, where you basically wean yourself from a liquid diet into a solid diet again, where you start reintroducing foods, and seeing what your body will take or won't take. And I've always been really blessed. People talk about getting the Taco Bell shits and all that kind of stuff. Like I've always had pretty great gut health. As a matter of fact, I've always had great numbers, right? Great cholesterol, blood pressure, you name it, was always off the charts awesome. And all my docs were like, we should run these tests again. I'm like, why? Because I'm healthy, but I'm fat. Like, no, we don't need to run these tests again. I mean, you can. I was in peak physical condition with all my blood work and whatnot, but I weighed 460 some odd pounds. And it was mind blowing to the doctors.
Wow.
I mean, it was mind blowing to myself. Like, all right, cool. I'm in a place where I'm not totally fucked yet. I don't want to get to where I'm totally fucked.
Right.
And that was also part of it, right? Like it's not too late to change it. I wasn't pre-diabetic yet, but who knows how long until that was going to be a thing. Right. So anyway, yeah, followed the post-op diet. 8 weeks gets me to the end of April. Started in on some workouts, to slowly start getting back on track. And then in May of 23, I ended up with a gout flare up to where I could barely even stand. And I didn't know that it was gout. I'd had gout before, but it didn't feel like gout. And it can't, and I hadn't participated in any of the triggers. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't eating a lot pork at all. I wasn't eating red meat. So I was like, what, this has to be something. I was like, I don't know what I did. I must have heard it. And so I ended up going to the urgent care, and they're like, oh, we can't help you. You're gonna have to go to the emergency room. So I racked up like $3,000 in, it was more like 2,200, I guess, between those two visits before I ended up back at my primary care doctor. And they're like, well, it's just gout. Here's
And they can't really do shit about it, can they?
no, what's it called? Chlorothalidone, to help regulate your uric acid levels. So I take that just to kind of keep that regulated. But yeah, that's all they really can do.
I bet you were pissed though, because it was another version of that same thing where you're making all this progress and then boom,
Yep.
roadblock.
Yeah, it was another major setback physically. So, and that happened the very beginning of June in 2023 was an eye opener. For me, I did another mushroom trip, but instead of it being planned out, scheduled, mind right, and ready for it, it was a last minute idea with a new roommate who moved in that day.
Oh, wow.
And there was a comment that was made that could have implied, even though she knew that was not the intention, it was a comment that implied that there was potential to think of harming someone. Like, I was going to give her the mushrooms that were already capsuled, and I was going to recapsule some for myself and my brother. And my brother was like, I don't like that. We just met this girl and you want to give her these, and then we're taking something that appears to be, even though we all know it's not, it appears to be very different. And that fucked with my psyche so hard, because I would absolutely never hurt someone else with intent. So anyway, we ended up just doing all new. And instead of taking capsules that take 30 minutes to sink in, I ground them up new, and we took it with a glass of chocolate milk. So it metabolizes rather quickly. And I took it, and it wasn't 10 minutes later before I knew this isn't going to be a good trip. Like, I could feel the intensity coming on, and man, it was intense. I ended up having to call my best friend James, and I was on the phone with him for 90 minutes in the fetal position in my bed with my eyes closed, with him just checking in, talking to me to help me get through it. It's one of those things, like, I'm really fortunate at how mentally strong I am. Because with the intensity, I could see why someone would want to end that. Like, it was, but with that trip, I ended up running down this hallway with all these doors standing wide open, and I could see what was behind each door. It was all the things I'd never done: wife, kids, world travel, owning my own business, you name it. All of the things I've ever wanted to do my whole life. And every time I'd get to a door, it would slam in my face. That's going down this hallway, endless hallway of opportunities. And every opportunity would slam in my face to just continue to run to nothingness. And I didn't know what it meant until this summer. But that was a big part of the trigger that helped me realize I needed to quit my fucking job and find a way to start living life on my own terms. So that was early June. I ended up bonding very closely with that new roommate. She's like a kid sister to me now. Just awesome girl. I went a couple of weeks later to Mexico for a destination wedding with some of my best friends, and actually was able to truly disconnect from my phone, which was something I hadn't been able to do for a long time. I was always somebody that craved connection, and
And you're in sales. So, you know,
Well, and it wasn't even that. Like I craved genuine connection with people. And I've never fully had the genuine connection I've looked for in some ways. I mean, there's obviously some ways I have,
I
but
think we're generally starved for that, all of us, but
oh,
you
for
know
sure.
it, you recognize it. Some people don't even
Yeah.
recognize.
I mean, I even got to the point through this whole journey where I stopped reaching out to the people that I always reached out to see who's going to reach out to me.
Yeah.
And my phone's gone off so much less in the last year than it ever has. And that's just for me no longer being the first one to reach out. I've learned so much more in this journey about myself, about the people in my life, the way support works. Man, you name it, I've learned it.
It sounds like that decision to really, the decision to have the surgery was like, you explained it as like swallowing your pride and basically asking for help in one area. And you knew
Mm-hmm.
that that would unlock your ability to grow in all the other areas. And it sounds like that was true and that's worked. And that vision of you going down the hallway. I mean, dude, I got like full body chills when you were talking about that because it was just like I felt like I was you, like in that moment. And to me, what that triggered was just like disappointment
Oh, it was,
over and over and over and over.
yeah, it helped me realize just how numb I'd been for so long. Because I always wanted to do all of those things, but I was not comfortable enough in my own skin to do half of them. And a lot of those things are shared experience things. And I didn't have the people to share those experiences with. You know, like the day that I decided to have that surgery was the first time that I realized there's a difference between knowing yourself and understanding yourself.
Mm.
Like I've always known that I'm a all or nothing kind of person, but I never understood why until I had to make the decision not to be.
Why were you?
I mean, well, because if I didn't go all or nothing, I'd never get it done.
Right.
You know, if I didn't tackle everything at once, I didn't know if I'd miss something along the way. So finally understanding that I don't have to tackle everything at once. I can go back and I can pick something up if I drop it.
Right.
You
Damn.
know,
Where do you think that started? Do you have any idea like where that all or nothing mentality came from? Have you just always been that way?
I've always kind of been that way. I mean, when I was 16 and I have a weird affliction for dates. But on July 16th of 2002, my brother and a buddy of mine, we'd gone from our small town in Holden to Blue Springs, about 30 minutes to do this lineman challenge. It was like 105 degrees, hot as hell. And we were out there for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours doing all these different workouts and drills and you name it. Of course, you know, being 16 on the way back to our small town that didn't have much, we wanted to get Taco Bell while we're in the big city. So we went to Taco Bell and I got the biggest Mountain Dew they had because I drank all the Mountain Dew. And I went to take that first drink of Mountain Dews. I didn't drink any water before I left that camp. This was the first drink that hit my lips after being in this for hours. And it was a tinge of green, but there was no syrup in it. It was straight, gross, nasty soda water. Almost made me throw up. And I dumped it out. And I rinsed my cup. Started looking at the water at the fountain, and again, I was like, God, it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna get water. Water is the only thing that sounds like it's gonna get this taste out of my mouth. And it was so refreshing and tasted so good that at that moment I decided I don't drink soda anymore. And I went cold turkey and just quit drinking soda. You know, like I'll have the occasional root beer or cream soda now, but for years I didn't touch it. And I lost like 25 pounds right before football season. You know, so like that was one of those things that I always like kicked myself for. I'm like, man, I want to lose weight, but I don't even have this to give up, right? Like I don't indulge in this sugary shit. I was like, I wish I had this to give up, but you know,
And you quit chewing tobacco too. Cool.
I did that at the beginning of 2017 because let's just say like I had a night where if I was able to make it through that night without it, I didn't need it anymore.
Right.
And that was the day that was January 16th of 2017. I was like, yeah, I don't do this anymore. It's not who I am. And I think that's part of why I've always been an all or nothing person is, the more you wean into something or ease out of something, you're leaving the door open for yourself to go back to those old habits.
Right. And you're not that person anymore. It's almost like
Right.
an identity shift. That's like, yeah, I wouldn't call myself an all or nothing person. I tend to leave the door open for myself and dabble back and forth before I fully commit to making a decision. But it's interesting to see how our approaches can cut both ways, right?
Yeah.
Like all or nothing mentality has helped you so much in all these different circumstances, but it also hurt you in like you couldn't come to this decision to do this thing without giving that up a little bit. So
Right.
it's an interesting like dichotomy between that mentality.
Yeah.
And I see also in you something that I have in myself as well. Not everybody has this, but like this freaking like fiery drive inside that you cannot stop.
Yeah.
Like if you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna fucking do it. And
100%.
yeah, like not everybody has that, but I see that in you, and probably cuts both of us both ways too. Sometimes like, hey, you can ask for help. What? What's that? Fuck that. I do it myself.
That's right. Now, through this journey, I've run into a lot of people that I hadn't seen in months or years or whatever. And there's always this shock about how much weight I've lost. And one of my favorite comments is I can't believe how much weight you've lost. Guess what, motherfucker? I can, right? Like I didn't need you to believe it.
Right.
I believed it could do it. It's astounding how many times I've gotten the comments, oh, I can't believe it. I didn't need you to believe it. All right. And back to the all or nothing thing on like where my mindset has had to shift is I've realized that I can't always be the all or nothing. I have to ease into things. And a lot of that has to do with how physical, the physical activity I can do without myself.
Yourself. You're just going
Yeah.
too like burning out, going too hard. Like,
Well, and I did that again last year. Like I said, I went to the destination wedding where I actually relaxed and lived in the moment and wasn't tied to my phone. I did that in June, started back up working out hard again in July, hit the ground running, not quite literally, but I was putting up quite a few miles of walking in. End of July, my foot started hurting like so bad that I couldn't help with the coolers and all that kind of stuff on the flow trip at the end of July. And it was getting to the point where I could barely walk. So I finally swallowed my pride and went to a podiatrist who told me that I had developed tendonitis. And the only cure for it was to stay off my feet.
rest.
And I'm like, dude, you were killing me here, man. So I stopped pushing it quite so hard. Instead of trying to get 15,000 steps a day, I was like, I'll just get my 10. And I did that through most of August before I went to a concert out at Starlight, and I could not stand for the concert. My foot hurt so bad. And based on the way that the floor sloped, I just couldn't do it. I had to sit through the entire concert. And so that night I overnighted myself a boot to try and ease my way. I spent 6 weeks in that boot. Not quite 100% of the time, but as much as I could. And I got a knee scooter because I wanted to take care of that foot because I wanted to get back on track. So that was all through August and into September. And September 17th last year, I hit under 300 pounds for the first time in over 15 years, which oddly enough, that same week also happened to be my bucket point at work, where I decided I can't do this anymore. And my last day will be, without question, the last day of the year. So I always told my boss I'd give him a 60-day notice, and I bought myself 6 weeks to put this business together that I knew I needed to do in order to leave. So I started working on that, met with a friend, or now a friend, but met with someone about helping me with my logo and my website. She bought into what I wanted to do for my business and became my partner instead of just somebody I hired to do things. End of October or so, at the very end of October, I put in my 60-day notice. I also, in that same week, ended up with tendonitis in my other foot and ended up on that scooter through pretty much the rest of 2023. And I did that pretty diligently because I wanted to really hit 2024 running without all the physical setbacks that I'd had. I was tired of having these setbacks. They didn't deter my loss as far as like my weight loss. Like that still continued because I had changed my eating habits. I didn't have to be physically active to lose the weight. So that was a big bonus.
Like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. I did a lot of that for years. So I rolled into 2024 with nothing going to hold me back. Ready to launch this business from the ground up, no roadmap, but I was going to figure it out. You know, like you mentioned at the beginning of this, like Goldie's kind of become a persona, like most people don't even know my name's Nathan.
Yeah, nope.
And so anyway, and jumped into the business. I mean, I knew on December 28th of 2023, 90% of the details for my adult prom that I had on May 10th. I knew the date. I knew the band. I knew what I thought was going to be the location. And then I spent the first 3 months of the year with new autonomy over my own time and didn't focus on my business at all. I worked on, which I didn't realize this is what I was doing until I took the deep dive. But I used that freedom to have lunch with friends and do midday workouts and you name it. I was living. So I felt, I did a little here and there for my business, but I didn't really work on my business like I should have. So that was January. I joined the gym.
I needed a little bit of a break too.
It was some of the best things I've ever done for myself in my entire life were this surgery, quitting my job. The first 3 months of this year they were 3 months I didn't know I needed.
Where you could just be in the flow and do whatever you felt like doing and follow your heart.
Yeah. I mean, I crushed my financial health doing it. I road tripped. I made a last minute spontaneous road trip to Vegas for the Super Bowl.
I saw your picture.
Go to the game.
Blast.
But I mean, I went with a couple of friends whom I've been friends with for 10, 12 years. But I spent more time in that one weekend with them in one-on-one settings than I had in our entire friendship. Like I was thinking about this last night. Like, everybody says there's a huge difference between your friends and your acquaintances. I challenge that with everybody has their work friends, their bar friends, their club sports friends, whatever it is, your mommy and me group friends. But for the most part, those people don't know anything else about the rest of your life, but you call a friend and they are your friend in that setting. But to some people, they call them still just an acquaintance. But anyway, so February did that. I ended up having to sacrifice a different trip that I had already paid a deposit for that I wanted to go on because I didn't have the money. Sacrificed that. In March, I spent working on my financial health and I worked a bunch for Big 12, trying to put a little money back in the bank. And then at the end of March, I finally started truly planning out my adult prom for May 10th. So I gave myself like 6 weeks to be honest, 6 weeks to really put that thing together.
Which, by the way, I just want to announce for people who don't know, Goldie is like a major networker and he hosts these awesome events here in Kansas City. One of which, the biggest of the year this year so far, was adult prom, which I attended and was a complete blast. So just a little background there. Go on.
So coming out of that adult prom, I had to take a deep dive and figure out like what direction did I really want to take my business? And more importantly, what direction did I want to take my life?
And did you enjoy the process of planning and executing adult prom, or were you like, fuck this, I don't want to do this again?
I did. I love planning events.
Yeah.
The biggest problems I ran into that, back to that not asking for help thing.
Oh yeah, that.
And, you know, and there was some times, and a lot of this is I've learned about myself and figured out after the fact and diving into figuring out what went wrong, what could I have done better, why was this not the smashing success that I thought it was going to be, you know, ultimately what caused me to lose thousands of dollars before it was all said and done. And I had to take ownership over a lot of the things that I did wrong, but I also had to give myself some grace in some of the true setbacks that I hit and things that were out of my control, but were real roadblocks. Like, for instance, different Facebook groups that are literally designed to share events for people to go out and have fun and do date nights.
Right.
I joined dozens of Facebook groups like that, and none of them would share my post or respond to me about why they wouldn't share my post. I would re-edit it. I would message them directly. They crickets. Either they would ignore it or they would decline it. And so like that was very frustrating. You know, and I hit points of I created an Instagram for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And within 1 hour of creating an Instagram, I got banned for a week.
Damn. Goldie, what'd you
I
do?
had I added too many friends too fast.
Oh, they thought you were like a scammer or something.
Yeah, they said that I was utilizing a service that allows me to add followers or helps me add followers, and that was against their policy. The service I was using was their fucking suggested friends list. You know, so like it was a lot of silly setbacks like that. I got banned from Facebook for sending messages to friends, lots of things like that at the end of the day. But at the ultimately, to what most people would call fucking off the first 90 days of the year, but I call living life finally, that was the biggest downfall to that prom. Because if I'd have given myself that full 5 months or 4 months, it wouldn't have seemed so daunting to do it all by myself.
Right.
Um,
And next time you can ask for help. And it was still off the fucking chain, by the way. It was still a great time. Everybody had a great time. And it was the first, like, I mean, I don't know for sure. It sounds like it was the first large scale event of your business. You know,
yeah,
like you do events all the time, but not like to that scale. And
correct.
that, like, with that level of detail to plan, that's a lot.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't like, and that was, it was too much for one person to go all the different directions. Yes, to
sure.
get sponsors, to talk to the vendors. Um, so, you know, taking a deep dive through the last couple of months into that and figuring out all the different things I did wrong. And I was crushed in a lot of ways. You know, I learned a lot about the people in my life and the way that people support. You know, I had a couple of friends talking about more than one person and not in the same sitting, talking about how excited they were and they couldn't wait to tell all their friends about it. It was the coolest thing they'd ever heard about. And I was like, hey, look, I was like, I really appreciate that. It's like, if you can help me sell 5 tickets, 10 tickets, I'll give you a pair, because I had allotted tickets to give away to people who helped me bring in. More people like, no, man, I could never ask for free tickets from you. I want to support you full price. I want to support you. And then they didn't even show up. They totally just fell off the face of the earth. They appeased me in the moment while we were in person together. And I had,
Words versus action.
man,
I'm
and,
learning that one too. It's
you
hard.
know, and one of those people hit me up for discount on their tickets after, like, I was like, sure, here you go, whatever. If it gets you in the door, you know, like, so learned a lot about that, but having a look in the mirror and truly take the ownership of your own failures, it's not easy.
And if it were, you wouldn't be doing it right, maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, but so between that, I had met someone earlier in the year that we shared a pretty deep connection, hours on the phone. And we just, neither of us was in a right place for that, especially not long distance. And certainly She was very emotionally unavailable. In this deep dive, I've realized just how I've had to handle heartbreak that I set myself up for. Like, I was not planning any type of dating this year, and just kind of happened, and I fell hard. So between that, failures of the business, learning where I stood with a lot of people, or more importantly, that I didn't stand at all with some people, was huge. Especially with people that for years I've been over backwards for, and I've done, you name it, what favors and discounts and hookups on Chiefs tickets and free bottle service and whatever it was that they would always hit me up and ask for. And then when it came time for me to ask for something, it was like I didn't exist.
Crickets.
And that was probably one of the hardest realities that I had to come to grips with over the summer. I mean, to be honest, it's been a necessary but very lonely last 3 months. And that was
starting from a solid foundation when it's just with you and whoever's going to hit you up.
Yes. Yeah. So like, I mean, I've learned more about myself in the last 3 months, diving introspectively into myself as to why I do things the way I do them, or what I can change and what I can't change, and what I shouldn't focus on because I can't change it. Right. And really diving into what I can and can't control has helped me figure out a lot more about who I want to be. I dove into nature, walks with my dog, changed my relationship with music. So now I can sleep without music. I can work in silence. Like earlier this week, I challenged myself to 30 minutes of uninterrupted work in silence. I made it a little over an hour before I got a phone call.
Baby steps, man.
Like, that was huge. I've never done that. I've never been able to, I mean, I say never. In the last 8-10 years, I haven't been able to sit in a silent room by myself.
Yeah.
Because of how loud it is in my head.
You're clearing it out, though, one step at a time. And the people are dying to know what is next for Goldie.
There were a lot of self-reflection and thinking about the reasons I started my business, which was ultimately to help people, right? Help small businesses, help people connect, because, as we talked about, people are lonely and craving connection.
Yes.
I've been working on a dating app, singles social network. I've got all the things that I want to do, and I need to start looking for partners on some of these things, people that can help me bring these to light with the skill sets that I don't have to do it, because I think they're pure gold. But ultimately, the biggest step forward for me within my business and what I want to put my own focus on is mindset coaching. I want to start working with people with a weight loss and fitness forward on how to get their mind right to take the leaps that they need to or want to become their favorite version of themselves.
Sounds fucking dope. And I think you're highly qualified because, as we've witnessed here, you've done it for yourself over and over and over.
And for the first time, I'm fucking succeeding at it.
And another thing I just want to honor and recognize about you is your passion for connection helps everybody in your freaking circle, me included. I moved back to Kansas City and I haven't been here for years, and I have a few friends that I still knew and hung out with, but going to your events, always, you attract the best people and you go through the trouble, whether you're paid or not for it, to put together really fun things to do. And that makes a huge difference in everybody else's lives. And you have that is definitely just something really special about you. And I know you know, but I have to put that on blast because some people have that natural ability. You and I know my friend Kelsey, our friend Kelsey, she's really good at that too, just like a natural connector. And not everybody has that skill. Not everybody wants to do that. But everybody around those people benefit. And you are one of those people. So,
And actually, now that you say that a similar comment back in 2022 was one of the triggers that helped me realize it was okay for me to try and monetize that,
yes,
right?
it
Like
has extreme value.
I've always hosted events and I paid the way for a lot of people because I wanted people there and I wanted people to have a good time. So if the event cost me $1,000 and I brought in $500, then whatever, everybody had a great time. And I did that for years where I would just eat the cost or not charge people or whatever it was.
Because you loved it.
Yeah. And there was an event that some people had backed out and I was able to get a refund on some stuff. So I had, I don't know, enough money left over to either give everybody like $10 back or keep it. And my buddy was like, dude, I'm surprised that you don't make money doing this. I'm like, no, man, I've never, like, I just want people to have a good time. He's like, keep that money and you need to start charging enough to actually make money doing it, because not only are you paying for the food and whatever, you need to pay for your time.
Yes.
And I never took that into consideration, but that was one of the parts of that leap with starting that business is it is okay to make money doing that. And if I can find a way to make a living doing that, then I can do more connecting people and bringing people the joy that helps them move forward in their lives. So
And really quick, full circle backwards to your trip to Sam's Club where you dislocated your hip after the massage. You mentioned casually that you had 2 Sam's Club's orders. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, this motherfucker was shopping for an event by himself.
that
and not getting paid for it.
that particular time, I think it might have been for my vending machines, but yes, I do get the stuff for events separate.
You've come a long way in a very short amount of time, and I am fully confident that you will help other people do the same thing.
I appreciate it. It's been a hell of a ride, especially this summer. This last couple of months has been
deep dive,
dark and heavy, but it's not heavy anymore.
And you're a strong-willed person, as we've established. Yeah.
I've had more tears in the last 3 months than I had my whole life. For the first time in my whole life, I've allowed myself to actually feel emotions.
Yeah.
And that's a wild fucking feeling. Feeling 30 some odd years of emotions at one time.
Especially as a man, I know like it's extra hard, extra vulnerable to do that. And so many men we're losing men every day to suicide instead because I'm not going to say easier, but just so hard for men to feel like they can be emotional or yeah.
It's wild the way emotions work, right? Like there will be times that shit the other day, somebody stopped by, I fucking lost it. Totally lost it. Like, are you all right, man? I'm like, I will be. And I mean, he hadn't been here 5 minutes and I don't remember what he said. He was just talking about something in his own life that triggered something I've been processing. And, it's crazy how, like, when you're trying to keep it together, you just totally fucking lose it. But then last night, all I wanted to do was cry myself to sleep. And I couldn't even fucking do it. So,
or not in control of them.
That's right. Like, I've become more in tune with my emotions, but I have not learned how to completely control them yet. I've learned how to control a lot of them, but the emotional, or like the pain and the grief, those are the tricky bastards.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like I had this sense of very similar to you, like when I was working my law firm job, I was just like on this treadmill, just going so hard that I was numb to completely everything. I was also drinking a lot. And I had gone so long without feeling anything that finally, when I did open those floodgates, like as painful as it was to feel emotions, I was just so relieved to actually be
Yeah.
able to feel something. I didn't even care if it hurt. I was
Yeah.
just like, thank God I'm a robot, you know?
Oh, it's yeah. The finally allowing myself to feel as intense as it's been, totally fucking worth it.
Yeah.
Every single tear, uh, all the blood and the sweat that's gone into diving into myself. I mean, I could talk for hours if anybody ever wants to ask. Like,
What's one last nugget that you want to leave people with? Some advice from Goldie from his journey.
you would. Uh, hang on. Man, just one, huh?
Oh no, what as many as you want.
Well, no, but once you decide to stop trying to be perfect and just focus on being better, the journey's that much easier. Like, because that was something that I always struggled with. I'm like, all right, I got to get it perfect. It's got to be ready to go. And like with all of this, I didn't know what it looked like because, like I said, I've always been an all in, but I'm also a planner. So for the most of my life, I've planned out months and months in advance. So diving into, a surgery that I didn't know what to expect in Mexico and taking a leap on a business that I didn't have a roadmap for. I was just making it up as I went along, to diving into what looked like a potential relationship that I sure shit wasn't ready for, but I was ready to take a leap because it was a connection in a way I'd never felt before. So like just not being afraid to take that leap and just trust yourself and having a trust that things are going to work out how they're supposed to as long as you stay pointed in the right direction.
That's fucking awesome. And you're fucking awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story and like being brave enough to be vulnerable.
Thanks for having me on because I don't talk to a lot of people about it. So you have just gotten pretty much everything I've ever said about it out loud.
Damn. I'm honored. And I know everybody too.
My mindset coaching platform is going to be called Journey to Destination Me because
Love that.
everybody's own journey is to find their best version of their own me. And I just can't wait to help people with that.
And we'll have a link in the comments to how to connect with Goldie and how to sign up for his mindset coaching program.
Let's go. Have a great Friday.
Let's fucking go. And go Chiefs, baby. Hit him up for Chiefs tickets too.